So this is part 2 of the essentials, looking at the history and use of essential oils. So first of all, just remember that the information that is provided here is educational in nature, and it's just another tool in your wellness toolbox that you can use. And it's not shouldn't be construed as medical advice, and that you should always do your own due diligence in anything that comes along across your horizon, especially being introduced into your body. And the information here is not exhaustively comprehensive, but does touch on many of the aspects. So looking at some more historical uses of essential oils, in the Egyptian arena, they used oils and aromatics for lots of different things. Mummification, embalming. In 1923, when they opened up King Tut's tomb for the first time, they found still intact ointments that had fragrance, that had oils associated with them. So on the lower right there, you see this kind of ornately carved, almost looks like ivory, from Tut's tomb. They found that still having an aromatic cream that was diffusing essentially its content into the area of the tomb. The oils were used in their religious practices as well as in maintaining health of skin. So in Egypt, of course, the sun is very, very unforgiving, and so it helped to protect the skin and revitalize it. Cleopatra was well known. She was basically a walking perfumery. So she was a well-known Egyptian queen, and well known for use of oils for therapeutic purposes and beautification purposes. They are the substances that are found as aromatic and healing, but not necessarily as oils from the Egyptian times, as the oils as we know them today. But they were plant extracts that were often used in creams and things like that. The oils were present, but not in the light oils that they are typically available in today. So we see below here, this copper thing is actually a distilling device for distilling essential oils from plant material. So the Chinese use plant oils in a variety of different fashions. Essential oils, again, it may not have been exactly the light form that we find today. They were used around the same time as the Egyptians used theirs. They used them for putting aromatic scents into their living spaces to help scent their clothing. Bathing was not a high priority in earlier times. Hygiene is relatively a part of the modern era. It was still coming into vogue in the 1800s. Warm water and easily accessible bathing certainly made that more prominent, as well as just the hygienic health movement also lent credibility to reducing the skin pathogens as well as just the dirt and grime. But during the time when that wasn't prominent, they scented their clothing, they scented their living areas, worship areas, and also found health enhancing benefits from the oils. And last time we mentioned about the fragrance of the pine and the cedar as being noted in Ministry of Healing. So their function is based on specific actions and properties of the herbs and their constituents for the oils. And when the Chinese were using essential oils, they focus on the whole person wellness, as opposed to just looking at trying to mitigate symptoms and make those symptoms go away or resolve themselves from a surface view, but actually going deeper into the physiology, the etiology, and the individual's whole person perspective. As we move on through history, the Greeks were major purveyors of botanical uses and oil use. Botany is a study of plants, basically means pasture or grass. And there are three Greek botanical pioneers that history denotes. Sure, certainly there were others, but these have a high prominence. Hippocrates is one of these. He made the statements that are quite well known about plant properties being important for health. He was considered the father of Western medicine. Today, that Western medicine would call what he practiced holistic medicine, and even would probably call it alternative medicine, just because it's an alternative to mainstream allopathic medicine. That doesn't make it any less effective. In fact, it may be more effective. Many would argue that, especially in today's politicized and money-driven pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. So Hippocrates noted over 200 different plant uses that had, and many times, fragrant components to them that were the aromatic qualities of the oils that are found in plants. And they basically found that plants saved lives, and they saved people who were going into surgery. That made them be able to have functional surgery that had a good outcome, essentially helping to keep the bacteria count down, as well as promoting and aiding healing. So he focused on the etiology, or the underlying basis from a physiological standpoint of disease, versus seeing disease as some kind of a plague or a curse from the gods, disfavoring the people for doing something that angered them. So that was kind of his paradigm of looking at whole person wellness and health. He made a couple statements that were many statements, but there are a couple quotes here. If someone wishes for good health, one must first ask oneself if he is ready to do away with the reasons for his illness. Only then is it possible to help him. So many times in Western medicine, the physicians that care essentially just throw up their hands, not literally, but they figure that the person is not going to want to change any of their habits, make any changes, so they'll just give them something to ease their way through it, mitigate the symptoms, not actually resolve the symptoms or have them go away because of health and wellness, but just mask them, hide them, ease the people through them. So if someone wishes for good health, one must first ask oneself if he's ready to do away with the reasons of his illness. And then the next process of that is discovery. So discovering what that is. So only then is it possible to help him. And then he made the famous statement that our food should be our medicine, and our medicine should be our food. So using food for taking care of our bodies and bringing it back into health. And if something's going wrong, just making sure that we're eating the right things, fueling our bodies appropriately, not only with fuel, but with repair entities and structures that can keep our cells in top functioning order. Another Greek individual, Theophrastus, was considered the founder of botany. He wrote a book called The History of Plants. He began much of the research on plant aromatic properties and of flowers on emotional states. So calming effects of lavender was well known, and this is a monograph of his work on lavender. So he was instrumental in identifying many of the properties and identifying flowers and plants that had medicinal roles. Pedania Dioscorides was a Greek military doctor, pharmacologist of the time of the day, a botanist as well. So a botanist, again, studies plants between 50 and 70 AD, so not long after Christ, during the Greek era. He wrote the 5-volume book, De Materia Medica, or Medica, and the Materia Medica is still a title that is used today, has different information in it today, but it's still a title that is used. It's a precursor to our modern pharmacopoeia, which is essentially a book or resource for pharmacists and physicians looking at pharmacological properties of various substances, including plants, less so than man-derived formulas and concoctions, but nonetheless things that have pharmacological effects on the body. He discussed 600 plus plants and uses, their uses, preparations, and storage. So in this was the main role, one of the main roles of the plants was the aromatic qualities of them on the human body. Claudius Galen was a Greek doctor, surgeon, and philosopher, and he began his practice treating gladiator wounds, and he used medicinal herbs to heal their wounds and bring them back to health and strength. And he promoted a theory known as the four humors. He focused on treating the person and not the symptoms. So feeling that if the person was in health and being fueled and given the proper resources and nutrients, that their health would follow. So oil distilling was brought back from the European Crusades. So as the Crusaders are moving across Europe during that era, they brought back with them things that they found of benefit in the various areas they were. And oils were used extensively during the Dark Ages. The Catholic Church frowned on bathing, and as well as other knowledge that was being diffused on cleanliness and hygiene. The Levitical laws are key for hygiene and health, and they were essentially chained to convent walls and monastery walls, and the public was not actually able to access them until later when the scriptures became freely available. The oils protected from the stench that would follow an individual, especially if they had boils or abscesses or things like that, which uncleanly conditions would lend themselves. But many times those oils were unknowingly to the individuals. Over time, the observations were made, but bacteria and viruses and funguses were not readily known. Fungal situations were probably more obvious than bacterial and viral because they weren't even known at that time. But many of the plant oils function in antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal roles. During the plague, fumigation with oils was very beneficial and helpful in mitigating disaster in many places, helping people manage through the plague. And the Black Plague was kept at bay with combinations of eucalyptus, clove, rosemary, thyme, and sage. And that's a time-tested group of therapeutic plant properties that have been used throughout the ages and was particularly beneficial, notably during the Black Plague time. So essential oils come on the scene in the modern era in 1928 with the work of René Maurice Gattefossé, a French chemist. He was doing a lab experiment and burned his hand. And the first thing at hand on his lab bench was some lavender oil. He took that and slathered it on the burned area, and it had a positive effect, not only mitigating the burn, but helping it to heal. Kind of continued using that, and that stimulated a desire and a curiosity to discover and find out other plant properties that could be benefited from. So he began to research lavender in particular, burns, skin infections, various wounds, and found that it had ongoing beneficial effects. And this is where the aromatherapy concept kind of began. So not only is it beneficial from an inhalation standpoint, the aromas, but also from the topical usage. It was actually used in Spain during the Spanish flu. Should say French. He was a French chemist in France. The Spanish flu spread all across Europe and was actually brought to the Americas on troop ships after World War I. And in the hospitals where lavender was used, lavender oils and essential oils for aromatherapy, there were no hospital personnel that died from the flu when it was used prophylactically in those areas. It probably had some benefit, although that wasn't noted on the patients as well, but the practitioners were also afforded some protection during that period of time from the Spanish flu. So that's another interesting thing, along with fresh air, sunshine, hydrotherapy, that benefited people from the Spanish flu in a better way than the modalities that were used at the time. Interestingly, on PubMed, which is the NIH, National Institutes of Health search engine for medical literature, there are many research articles on essential oils. In 1990, there were 121 papers that were submitted and in the database. By 2022, just in 2022 alone, there were 2,619 papers submitted in that year alone. And there's been an exponential increase from the 90s and earlier. In 2023, the total account yesterday when I searched, 27,431 search results for just searching under the specific term essential oils. You could do essential oil, you'd get another batch. If you looked under specific other terms, you would come up with additional. So that's just a small percentage of the research articles for various pharmacological and medical effects and reviews on their use and efficacy that is found in the literature. So there's a growing body of evidence that supports their incorporation into daily use. Proverbs 21:20 makes a statement, there is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise. So basically, the wise used various oils, not only the oils for cooking. One might think that that's the primary directive of the text there, but there's more to it than that. There's the use of essential oils for healing and health. And then they're basically just unlocking the power of plants that was given for us on the third day of creation during the creation week. So essential oils defined. Essential oils are comprised primarily of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And these are collectively known as hydrocarbons. And you can see some chains of how those are represented in the chemical formula. You have an expanded form on the far left and a condensed structural formula, and then a stick formula on the far right. So that's how the various chemical constituents, the hydrocarbons, can be represented. They can also be represented by names, so naming structures, as well as just simply by their chemical formula. So there's two basic general types of oils. There's fixed oils and there's essential oils. So fixed oils are the ones that we typically think of when we think of oil. They're typically the cooking oils from various seeds. They're non-volatile hydrocarbons, meaning that they don't evaporate into the air. And if they do, it's so slow it's imperceptible. So something like olive oil or coconut oil. Coconut oil is going to be non-volatile to the greatest extent, along with things like palm kernel oil that are solid at room temperature. But liquids, as they increase in temperature, would become more volatile. Grapeseed, they're basically free fats. And these are the kitchen oils. They can be from the plant kingdom or the animal fats, but they're not going to be volatile. You're not going to get a scent from them so much. So essential oils are the other general type of oil, and those are the volatile hydrocarbons. So they're going to give off a scent that is going to diffuse into the room just from the point of origin around the room and lend its scent to the area. They vaporize readily into the air. So that's where aromatherapy comes in, because you then breathe that in and it can have beneficial effects. It also passes through the skin very easily. Because it is an oil, it can pass through the lipid membranes of the cells, the fat layers of the cells of our skin, and go directly into the body. So when one applies a fixed oil to the skin, it is more oily and greasy in nature on the surface of the skin. It'll stay there for some time. It doesn't pass into the skin very well. Unlike an essential oil, which passes into the inner basal layers of the skin more rapidly, and then the deeper tissues into the bloodstream, then they vaporize quickly and don't have a greasy texture at all to the skin. Now, when using an essential oil, there are two different designations we'll talk about again as well. But there is a designation of neat, which basically just means that you can put the essential oil from the bottle straight on your skin with no issues. So something like lavender, you can use neat. But other oils are hot, like oregano. You wouldn't want to use oregano directly on your skin. It would need to be diluted in a carrier oil like fractionated coconut oil, almond oil, or even olive oil. Especially on moist skin, it can have a majorly warming effect or burning effect. When we first were introduced to essential oils, my wife put some oil of oregano on my daughter's throat. She had a sore throat and put it on the exterior, and not aware yet about the cutting with the oil to reduce its hotness. And so she had put that on and it started burning, and a burning sensation, not blistering, but just a burning sensation. And I just went and got some olive oil quickly and rubbed that on over top of it. And that cut it down significantly and made it non-burning effect for my daughter. So there are some oils that are definitely hot and need to be cut as they're being applied. So essential oils that are used are exclusively plant sourced and non-greasy. So there's no animal sources of essential oils. They're all plant sourced. There are different extraction processes. We have steam distillation, cold pressing, and CO2 extraction are the three primary methods. There's also chemical solvent extraction, which these are not considered by purists to be true essential oils, while some chemical solvents can draw off specific plant constituents. Then you're left with the chemical solvent to deal with. And some of them, like hexane, are not things that you would want to have in contact with your body, especially in large quantities. So steam distillation, you can see another example of a copper steam distiller, $500 for a home type of unit. You could get that and create your own essential oils from your own plant material. Most people opt to purchase them in small quantities on their own, but you can get home units on your own if you'd like. You can even get home pressing units, a cold pressing unit. The one below the copper unit is a pressing unit, cold pressing unit. And they have two different appearances. The cold pressed oils, which is usually done with something like citrus, is going to be a heavier bodied oil as compared to something that's steam distilled is going to be lighter. They're going to be carrying different constituents with them as well and have some different effects. The CO2 extraction is much more expensive and is a different way to pull off the plant constituents that have healing properties. But the primary way that is utilized in the arena of essential oils today is steam distilling. The little sunshine there, blue sunshine, that's the asterisk by steam distillation as being the most important and most commonly used form of oil extraction. So essential oils are volatile oils that are steam distilled from plant parts. So those plant parts are used in all the different types of extractions. So flowers, flower tops, fruit zests, and fruits themselves, grasses, leaves, twigs, resins, seeds, wood, roots. So all the different type of plant parts can have their oils removed. And you can get different oils from different parts of the plant too. So depending on what part is being distilled or utilized. So that's how essential oils are created through the steam distillation process. An absolute is a plant aroma that's solvent extracted from plant parts, often using hexane. So you may hear that term used, and those are typically used in cosmetics and perfumes and for extracting the fragrances from delicate plant parts, things like pansies and other violets for very, very delicate parts. But they can also be steam distilled. CO2 extracts, they're extracted by carbon dioxide gas at varied pressure, and depending on the pressure, you're going to get different plant constituents. You can have a heavy bodied, almost like an absolute, or you can get lighter bodied, more like an essential oil. So there's a bit of a spectrum for the CO2 extracted types of oil.
To be aware of new videos like this one, Be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.